All right, guys. It's EG and FC in the house tonight
What is
for Sports Tonight on Atlanta News First Plus, ANF Plus. And we're going to get started with the Braves, okay? Usually I don't like to start with baseball because it's just not my favorite sport, Fred. I got to admit it. I got to be
Same.
real on this show, right? But it's a pretty big deal that they were swept in my home country over the weekend. The Blue Jays did that, and I'm not mad about it because it is my home country. But they've lost 4 straight. I think they've lost 5 of their last 8. So some people are kind of concerned out there, especially Braves fans. But they still lead the division. They're ahead by 5 games. So for me, I am not freaking out yet. And I think you and I are going to have the same feeling here, since I think every time we talk about the Braves, we have the same feeling of it's so early on.
early.
But I think that there are problems that you can't ignore, because some of the problems that happen early on, if they're not fixed, will haunt you all season. And I think it's a glaring issue. The bullpen is a glaring issue. But some news that they probably didn't want to hear today, I'm going to spit it out before heading your way.
Go ahead.
Kyle Wright. He went from being on the 15-day injured list to the 60-day
Yeah, that's no
IL. And let's be honest, he was the winningest pitcher in all of baseball last season. Not having him around, I think, is going to affect the results for this team.
Yeah, that definitely hurts. You know, slumping in May. If you would have told me they're 5 games out of first, and is there a cause for concern? That might be a little bit different, but we're talking about a 5-game lead. The division leads down to 5 games, right? So, you know, they're in all right shape. I mean, there are ebbs and flows to the baseball season. Toronto's a very good team. Yeah, they split with Boston last week, so they've had to play some above 500 teams, and the American League East is probably the best division in baseball. So going up to Toronto, getting swept, you can't turn this into like you said it's 5 out of 8. You can't turn it into like a 15 out of 18, right? Then it starts to really become a problem. But if history is, you know, going to tell us anything, is that they'll probably right the ship and at least get back to, you know, some 500 baseball for the next few games, and then hopefully build off of that. And you mentioned the bullpen. That's probably the easiest thing to fix as the season goes on, whether it's at the trade deadline or with some, you know, bringing some guys up or whatever it is.
Listen, they're starting a 3-game set at the Rangers tonight, who lead the AL West. But I want to talk about their schedule before we move on. It's actually quite good. Okay, so 3 away games at the Rangers.
Yeah.
But then they come home for 10 straight. And it's a juicy slate. Okay, they start off with Seattle, which is not the best.
Yeah.
But then you go to Los Angeles. And then, I mean, when I say you go, I mean like Los Angeles is coming
comes
here.
here,
But so
yeah.
you go from Seattle to LA and then the Phillies. So
Right.
those 10 straight games at Truist Park are going to be delicious.
This can't be a 15 out of 18, right? Because you are playing some really good teams in this stretch. That's just the way it is. I mean, you know, you go from you're playing basically above 500 teams for about a month straight. So there are going to be parts of your schedule that are pretty difficult. It's good that they have that as a 10-game homestand. And as the weather heats up, hopefully they'll heat up as well, and you know, continue to maintain that lead. 5-game lead in the division, if that's what they have on June 1st, if it just maintains at 5 games, that's not a bad place to be.
No. And
Right.
the Phillies are right behind them. Okay.
Right.
So for me, I'm looking forward to Philadelphia coming here, because even though it's still early on, like that series might mean something, right?
Yeah.
So the Dodgers and the Phillies back-to-back games, or back-to-back series, I should say, at Truist Park should be a ton of fun.
Yeah.
And let's hope that Seattle, they're at 500. Okay, they're like a mediocre 500 team. So we'll see what happens. But this is kind of a tougher stretch for the Braves, playing some really decent teams for the next week or so.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to the Falcons. The Falcons rookie minicamp over the weekend. Always one of my favorite things to cover, and I say that every year because it's so unbelievable to watch the best of the best in college football go one step up to the next level and be completely lost. So no matter how good you are in college, you come to the pros and you realize very quickly the speed of the game is nowhere near what it was in college. It is so much faster. You, once again, have the best of the best running around in every which direction. I feel like coaches, they find pleasure in like saying like this way, that way, and like they're running around with no idea where to go, the players are. So it is kind of interesting to watch. Yeah. Bijan Robinson, we have to talk about him, the 8th overall pick. So justifying taking a running back 8 overall is going to be what the Falcons are going to try to do from here on out, in my opinion. And the way they justify that is by making Bijan Robinson do everything. And head coach Arthur Smith has quite literally said he's going to be everywhere on the field. So while he will be at back, he will also be at wide receiver, and we saw him line up at receiver during rookie minicamp. So get ready for that. Get ready to see Bijan Robinson run the ball, catch the ball. God knows what else he could do. He said he's going to block a little bit. Why not put him on offensive line? I mean, this is what it sounds like, right?
Might need him on offensive line. Well, he's yeah. He might. I'm sure he'll have to pick up a blitz or two, right, at some point. And that's a big learning curve for a lot of guys. And it's that NFL learning curve, how quickly guys can move on that curve. But from your perspective, the eye test on Bijan Robinson, how was it? Like, you know, because you've seen a lot of running backs, you've seen NFL players, you've seen great college players. Do you see a difference in there in the way that he moves, his quickness, speed?
So I would have to say yes, but I'm going to give you a yes in this sense. Since I've covered the Falcons, so the first year that I covered the Falcons, that's the year they went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And I got here very late in the season. And Devontae Freeman was the running back then, and he was quite good then.
Yeah, really good.
I don't want to compare the two, but I want to say that it feels very Devontae Freeman-esque in the sense that, like, I think Bijan Robinson completely understands the task at hand. He understands he was drafted in the top 10. The pressure is on. He told us quite a bit that he's been preparing his body because he understands that the NFL season is not the college football season. So his biggest thing right now is preparing for the grind of an NFL season, knowing that that's what will probably fail him first is his body versus anything else. And that's why running backs haven't been taken so high up in the draft in so many years, just because their durability. It's just not a position that's durable. I always like to think back at like Cadillac Williams, and he was so good at Auburn. And, you know, obviously coaches there now, and he's a god there. He can get anything he wants. Drafted in the top, 5, I think, top 10 by the Bucks. John Gruden drafted him, and his pro career just wasn't as great as his college career, and it had everything to do with his body and his durability, and you see that from so many running backs. But right now, Bijan Robinson, I got to tell you, Fred, he is favored to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Behind him, you've got Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson, C.J. Stroud. So you've got 3 quarterbacks right behind him. This means nothing. This is just according to DraftKings.
Well, I mean, DraftKings, but Vegas. I mean, those are you know, understandable odds because Bryce Young's rookie quarterbacks tend to have some struggles. So unless Bryce Young is a lot different than many rookie quarterbacks, just the mere fact of the volume that Bijan Robinson's expected to get, the numbers that he should be able to put up should be enough to propel him into that Offensive Rookie of the Year. And the mistakes that he might make are less obvious than the mistakes that Bryce Young might make. So Bryce Young might throw an interception. It's not as obvious when Bijan Robinson misses a blitz pickup or something along those lines, or doesn't quite see a hole correctly on a running play. So I think that's understandable that he's favored. Speaking of rookie camp, and I know we're talking Falcons here, but I thought I saw the word mastery or come out of Bryce Young and Carolina in terms of how he was handling the offense. So we shall see, right? These guys are
we will see more than most. We'll see 2 of them.
We'll see right off the bat, too, in week 1. But, you know, you got to take a lot of this stuff. That's why I asked you, as someone who witnessed it firsthand, you got to take a lot of this stuff with a grain of salt. You know, these guys are in shells and in shorts and not really, you know, all the time, going full on actual training camp starts to give you, I think, a better understanding of what guys might do. And then for the rookies, sometimes those preseason games, can have a big impact.
And let's be clear, it was only rookies at rookie minicamp. That's the
true
title.
too.
So May 23rd, OTA start in Flower
Yeah.
Branch for the Falcons. That's when most of the team will be together. We'll see what Bijan looks then, and especially when CP comes through. When Cordero Patterson comes through, I'm not even saying he's the number one back. Obviously, he won't be because they're going to play the heck out of Bijan. But when the vet comes through the room that's the most respected in that running backs room, we will see how that ends up, which I look forward to.
And Algier.
Yeah.
You cannot
Oh my
discount
gosh.
him either.
No.
So they have a great running game, great backs. Hopefully they'll get the blocking. Last year they got the blocking. They were really effective at running the ball last year. They couldn't protect the quarterback very well. But if they can maintain that, and hadn't really thought about it that much, but Cordero Patterson could be a great mentor for Bijan
Absolutely.
because he is that super versatile running back who can do just about anything. So hopefully he can help to guide the rookie a little bit.
So from the NFL to
Yeah.
the college and perhaps even like high school level, we're going to talk about Georgia
It's big
and
news.
what UGA continues to do.
Yeah.
Load them up. All right, let's just bring them all on the bus and let's just keep driving to straight to national championships. So UGA today snagged the #1 recruit in the class of 2024, a quarterback. Dylan Raiola, a 5-star guy out of Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona. And I find it very interesting, once again, that a quarterback wants to come to Georgia because sometimes that hasn't really worked out in the recent history, especially with Kirby there. But in 2024, we will more than likely see this guy play. And if he comes as advertised, he's going to start at Georgia pretty quick.
Yeah. I saw some, appraisals where he was the top ranked overall recruit, not just the top ranked quarterback. So that's huge to get him. Dad played in the NFL, Dominic Raiola. He was a lineman, a center. I think he played for the Lions, right?
Yep, 14 seasons.
Yeah, so great NFL player. He's a big kid, right?
6'3", 220 pounds.
That's big
right now. He
in
still
high
has a
school.
whole season. Yeah.
For a quarterback. So big kid, might end up 6'4", 6'5", already at 220, not a wiry kid. His dad was a center, so you'd think that, he does have some weight to him from just genetically. So yeah, that's huge. And to your point, it hasn't always worked out great with quarterbacks, but Stetson Bennett, was able to do some stuff, and there are a whole bunch of skill players that are coming out of, UGA, and you look at Darnell Washington, and then of course the RBU aspect of it as well, but Brock Bowers too, right? So Brock will probably be gone.
Oh, Brock will be long
of
gone.
course, right, by the time. But my point is that between him and Darnell Washington, that those are two really good tight ends. So it's not just like they're lining up and running the ball. They want a full featured offense.
And
So,
Raiola, I've got to say, he was committed to Ohio State, decommitted,
Yeah.
and has announced that he's coming to Georgia. He had many options, and I guess he kind of narrowed it down when he decided to decommit to USC, Nebraska, Georgia. Nebraska is where his dad played, so it was
Right.
his dad's alma mater. And USC is probably a little closer to home, obviously being on the West Coast, but he chose Georgia. He says it felt like home. The more and more that he came and he thought about it, it felt like home. So he announced it on Twitter, and it appears that as early as December, I don't know if he's going to be an early enrollee at UGA,
Okay. Oh, okay.
but it could be as early as December that we could see this kid on campus. And those practices are vital for those kids who
Right.
get to enroll early, because then you get to participate in the bowl practices. So you are well, ahead of other kids who don't come in until the spring. So you got kind of like a few practices under your belt leading up to bowl games or a national championship run, and
Just
then
being
you get
around the team.
Yeah,
You know,
and
it's
then you
big.
get to be the spring and
Yeah, and then right. So it seems like a lot of guys are there for the spring
Yeah.
ahead of their quote unquote freshman
That's
year.
like the thing to do now.
Big thing to do, and that puts them a step ahead of everybody else. There was a lot of talk about Arch Manning and Texas, but Raiola is a stud prospect, and it'll be exciting, for Dogs fans to have a guy like that coming in. And he also mentioned the standard. The standard of excellence.
The standard of excellence.
Yeah.
It's elite at UGA. Those are like things that those are the things that Kirby likes to talk about.
That's what you want your
elite.
quarterback. That's what you want your quarterback to say. I'm coming here.
His standard of
because
excellence.
the standard is set at such a high level.
It's amazing.
Some guys, probably not top tier quarterback prospects, might be a little bit, not scared away by that, but, that might not be the reason that they want to go, is that they know that they're going to be pushed to a level and have to maintain a level that is now currently at back-to-back national championships.
And Dylan Raiola will just add to the recruiting class that, since Kirby's been there, he's just been able to recruit top 5 classes every single year. His first season, 2016, which I'm not even going to say he had a full recruiting season under his belt, because he didn't. He was at Alabama. That was the only year that they weren't in the top 5, and they were number 6. So let's be honest here. As long as Kirby and his staff continue to recruit the way they are, they're going to continue being in the conversation year in and year out and be favored to make it to the national championship, especially with the playoffs expanding. Like, will Georgia ever miss a playoff?
Right.
Absolutely not.
Probably
not
not.
when there's 12
teams
that can get in.
Not
like,
as
are you
currently
kidding me?
constituted.
Right.
Not with the framework that they have right now. Then you factor in, Emily, the NIL and the transfer portal, NIL potential, all of that. Yeah. Just transfer portal alone. Forget about NIL potential. If you have a quarterback like Raiola coming in, you might have some skill position players who are like, ooh.
Yeah. I want to join him.
That's the guy I want throwing at me.
Yeah. Right. No, it's a great problem to have for Georgia.
Definitely.
So they'll in my guesstimation continue to win as long as they continue to pull these players in. All right. So we're gonna go to probably your favorite part of the day now, to NBA talk. And we're going to talk about the Lakers and the Nuggets, but we're also going to talk about your Celtics, who really grinded it out against the 76ers, and will play the Heat in a rematch, right?
Rematch.
Of last year's
This is actually a
finals.
rematch of conference finals, but
and
also
then the bubble, right?
A double rematch of the bubble.
Yep.
In the bubble, which a lot of people consider like half a championship, and I only say that because the Lakers won it as a Celtics fan, but it was Nuggets Lakers in the conference finals, and it was Celtics Heat. We know that it ended up being the Lakers over the Heat in the finals that year. This year, the Nuggets and the Celtics are the higher seeds. I'm not sure who Vegas is favoring in the Nuggets-Lakers series, but I know that the Celtics are pretty heavy favorites in the East. But it's the Heat, so you never know.
They've defied all
Spoelstra,
odds.
right?
Yes.
Spoelstra, Jimmy Butler, Kyle Lowry, Bam.
I'd be scared. A little bit.
Yeah. I'd at least
You're not
respect
scared
the
yet.
opponent.
You're not scared yet.
Right. Well, I mean, the Celtics know what they're getting into, which is going to be a very difficult series. You got to get ahead of the Heat 2-0 in this series and then take it from there. Because if the Heat split at home, man, it's going to be tough. I mean, if the Heat split at Boston, it's going to be tough. But I see that our little headline here is, are the Lakers the best team left?
No.
Vegas says no.
I say no too.
Yeah.
I'm not as rich as Vegas.
No. But analytics say no. A lot of things say no to that. But they have LeBron James, they have Anthony Davis, and then you go from there with that team, and they're playing well. So I think it's a pretty even matchup out west. What are your thoughts?
I mean, you got to think the Lakers eliminated the defending champions. Mm-hmm. So you might say out of the 4 left, they are the best team simply because they got rid of the team that was the team.
True, except
but,
10 minutes after the season ended, multiple players on the Warriors said this wasn't a multiple players and Steve Kerr said this wasn't a championship team. We did the best we could with what we had, which was kind of weird because it was essentially the same team that they had last year. But anyway, but yeah, I mean, they were kind of a mess all season, could never really get rolling like the Warriors typically do, and the Lakers took care of them. And as long as Anthony Davis is healthy, and as long as LeBron is playing like LeBron, they can lift, and mostly LeBron, can elevate the level of his teammates. He's done it so many times during his playoff runs. So it's going to be, I would favor the Lakers over the Nuggets.
Really?
I mean,
That's cool. I mean,
Nuggets are playing great.
I dig it.
Nuggets are playing great, but they have flaws too. You know, the Celtics are the best team left on paper. You know, they have the best 7-man rotation, 8-man rotation of anyone left. All the other teams have flaws. After 2 or 3 players, the Celtics, it's like after you get to 8 guys, you start to, and those guys aren't even seeing
Again,
the
he
floor.
said on paper, folks. But
Well,
the game's not played
it's true.
on paper,
It's not.
Fred.
It sure isn't. But so far through 2 rounds, the Celtics are through. They've had.
You were
some
nervous
ups
a
and
little
downs.
bit, though. You got to say it.
So my one point of nervousness was probably about 5 minutes to go in Game 6 when Jason Tatum, couldn't hit the ocean from a boat, and then we know what happened at the end of that.
Yeah.
So, when he turned that around, I knew yesterday going back to Boston, Doc's record in Game 7s. He's
Poor
now
Doc.
lost 10 as a coach.
Gosh.
Embiid and Harden, their records in very big playoff games. They get, Joel Embiid has never made it past the second round of the playoffs. He's never made a conference finals. Trae Young's made a conference finals.
My man Trae.
Through Joel Embiid. I mean, so this
Yeah,
is so
that was
he's
right.
never tasted success
In
really.
Philly.
Right, through that team. In Philly, no
Yeah.
less, right?
Yeah, Game
So,
7 in Philadelphia.
So I think at this point, your top remaining team is Boston. They have a dogfight though coming up with the Heat. It always is. Forget about the seeds, the 1 and the 8, and you can probably say the same thing out west. So it should be fun. Should be a good series.
What I like about the 2 matchups, what I like about the conference finals as a whole, what feels good to me is this play-in tournament actually means something because the Lakers and the Heat, they became the first 2 play-in teams
Right.
to make it to the 3rd round, to make it to the conference finals. So it's working. Some players don't like it. They say it feels very like NCAA tournament-y, where it's win or go home, but it actually holds weight. And if you play your way into the playoffs, you might get on a hot streak just in those games right there.
Yeah. Can I be
And-
a little bit of devil's advocate here though,
Yeah,
on this?
sure.
Because in
You don't
thinking
love
about
it?
it, no, I do like it, but load management, right? NBA games are
Sure.
expensive. So if you have a Philly Boston matchup, or just pick another team, Hawks matching up against whoever, Lakers in town, and Trey and Anthony Davis don't play because of load management, and you dropped a lot of money on those tickets, you're not so happy. Because of the success that you've gotten out of teams like the Lakers and Miami from the play-in game or from lower seeds, do you think that just makes teams more willing to not put as much into the regular season as they normally do?
There might be something to that.
Mm-hmm.
And people out there might be mad at me for saying this. I don't mind when players are sat out.
Yeah, it's just tough if you got the
Absolutely.
for the
If you
fans.
show up
Yeah.
to a game and you've paid money, I think that's awful.
Yeah, and it just depends. If you're sitting one star player, there's always going to be some other guys to watch.
Yeah.
But sometimes teams will sit multiple star players,
And
or
that's
have one
something
injured,
that should
one
be
sit.
discussed, maybe.
Yeah, well, whatever. I mean, at this point, it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
And from a Celtics perspective, I know that Tatum likes to play, but he did take a few scheduled games off this year so that he would be fresh like he is now as they make their playoff run, because he was fading as they were making their playoff run last year, and you could clearly see it in the Eastern Conference Finals, and then more so even in the finals. Yesterday, you saw what it looks like when he's still got a lot of gas left in the tank. I mean, 51
points.
no turnovers. Like that was, to me, what was even more impressive. First guy ever to score 50 and not commit a turnover
In a game
playoff
7
game.
in NBA history.
In a playoff game.
Yeah.
Forget about a game 7. First guy ever, 50 points, 0 turnovers in a playoff game.
Unreal.
And then the record for game 7, breaking Steph's record, so getting a 51. So yeah, it was fun. It was fun, and it should be really good. Eastern and Western Conference Finals. And what's on your mind?
Well, before I tell you, I have trivia for you, and I don't know if you'd be able to answer this because I wouldn't be able to.
right.
So the Heat became only the second 8 seed to make it to the conference finals. Do you remember who the other team was?
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
I don't.
You got to go
I
back
guess
to the
I'm-
1990s. So I feel
I'll go
like
Denver Nuggets.
No, so
No.
the Knicks, 1999.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I would
said
have never
Nuggets
guessed
because
that, by the way.
they had a big upset, I think, of the Sonics one year, but that was just the first round, and they probably lost in the second. So yeah, it doesn't happen often in the NBA. That is definitely true. But Lakers, Heat, if you would have shown me this conference final at the start of the season, I would have said, okay, that sounds about right, and not shown me the seedings. Right?
Yeah.
So, like, the teams are good enough. They're not your typical 8 and 7 seeds, as you said. All right, so what's on your mind?
All right, so there's a lot on my mind tonight having to do with UGA, and I'll get it started with Kirby Smart. And I know we just talked about him getting Dylan Raiola, the #1 recruit of the class of 2024. But can we just talk about how that coaching staff, when he says he's reloading, he doesn't lie, okay? He is literally reloading, and he's just stacking up players, Fred.
Yeah.
And when you have a resume like Georgia has right now, it's really hard as a kid not to want to go there. Forget NIL, transfer portal, everything you mentioned earlier. 2 back-to-back national championships is obviously very obvious, okay? But they've gone to 3. They've made 3 national championship appearances in his 7 seasons in Athens. They have gone to 5 SEC championship games out of his 7 years in Athens. They've only won 2. That is my one knock on them. But they've won the SEC East 5 years out of his 7 there. Georgia's success on the football
Incredible.
field is bleeding into other programs. And, you know, I might be reaching here,
Okay.
but right now, as we sit here in the spring when there's not much going on, the softball team is hosting a regional this weekend, the Athens Regional, because they too are doing very well. The men's and women's tennis teams are both in the Elite 8, playing this week, Wednesday and Thursday in Florida, Lake Nona. Get it, okay? Elite 8, you got pretty far.
Yeah.
And then when you look at the golf teams right now, the women, they've already punched their ticket to the NCAA championships this week in Arizona. And the men are leading their regional right now in the Bath Regional after just the first day, after
Right.
the opening round. But my goodness, the football program can make a difference. Okay?
Elevates everybody. Well, it brings in a ton of money.
People want
to
to
the
come and
department.
play for Georgia.
Yeah, brings in a ton of money to the department, elevates the profile of the school. Everyone knows Athens is a great place to go to school now, you know, and you've seen, I don't know exactly the history of all those teams you just mentioned, all those other sports, but you have seen this at a school like Alabama, where you start to hear about some Alabama sports doing a little bit better that you might not have heard about. So yes, I think that's definitely a case. And, you know, Georgia, I mean, it's a great place to go to school, very good school. And now you have all these other spring sports. I mean, you just think about it though, like golf, tennis, those are great sports to play at a school like Georgia.
Yeah, in the South where it's nice
Yeah.
and warm. I mean, this is where you want to be, right?
Exactly,
Why not?
exactly.
What's on your mind, Fred?
Matt Ryan.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Right? So
Yeah.
I want to ask you, though. So I saw that he was, you know, that he's now a CBS analyst, CBS football analyst. What do you think? How's he going to be at it? Because you know him, you know, you've interviewed him from his time here. You think he's going to be good at it?
Yes, absolutely. Meeting with him on a weekly basis for however many years I did it. I think he's going to be very knowledgeable about what goes on in huddles around the league. He'll be able to talk about the current players because he's seen so many of them. Not to mention, what I like about it is the fact that he won't have to worry about being sacked anymore because he's taken his fair share of sacks. So in the booth, he'll be nice and protected. He'll be able to feel happy and warm. He'll be able to do whatever he wants in that booth. No more hits for you, Matt Ryan.
Yeah.
Now you get to take it easy. Though I will say, Mr. Matty Ice says this is not retirement. If a call comes through about, you know, possibly being a quarterback for another NFL team, he's going to take those calls. So
Interesting.
yeah, but the booth feels so good.
Yeah.
It feels so good. No more hits.
Right.
I think that's it for us, Fred.
All right. Sounds good. Well, have a great rest of your night.
Have a good night, guys.
See ya.